He headed out, I think today or tomorrow. He's heading out that way. I remember Jordan Canyon, two offices. There's some yeah. Be careful. What's the glass was? You get the bottom. Office. Bathroom. All right. 6 o'clock. We good?
Yeah.
We're recording. You ready?
Ready when you are.
All right, ready. All righty. All right, it is 6 p.m. We'd like to call this meeting to order. Thanks everybody for being here. I love to see people. And so we'll crank right up, and if y'all would please stand for the pledge of allegiance. Please remain standing afterwards, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And we have Mr. Caldwell. Would you please lead us in invocation, sir?
Most gracious Heavenly Father God, thank you, dear Lord, for bringing everyone here this evening and having everybody gather here safe. We pray that everything done tonight will be done in accordance with your will and be pleasing to you. We pray you will just watch over all those who run this town, dear Lord. Guide them all. Keep them safe. Watch over and protect everyone in this room, dear Lord. May everyone leave here tonight and return home safe and sound. We thank you for everything. Love you. We praise you. We worship you. Prayer to you in Jesus' holy and precious name. Amen.
Thank you. If you would please remain standing just for a moment of silence for the neighbors we've lost. We had two in particular, Ken Hines and Faye Neal, and we'd also like to recognize the loss of Queen England from one of our nation's greatest allies tonight. So a moment of silence, please. Thank you. Please be seated. At this time, please check your cell phones, cut them off or put them on silent. I know some of you have some very interesting ringtones, but we'll talk about those later. And if there's any conflict of interest between any of the commissioners, please let it be known now. If not, then we'll look at adoption of the agenda as it is.
I move to adopt. Second.
Okay, all in favor? Next up is public comment. Did we have anybody sign up? Nobody signed up for public comment. Moving right along. Next up is a planning report. Sarah, are you going to give us a report? Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners, people of Cape Carteret. I'm Sarah Wax, Planning Board member, briefing tonight on behalf of Chair Hall. At our last meeting for the Planning Board, we took more of a workshop approach to discuss what undeveloped parcels with 2 acres of land or more may or may not be appropriate for rezoning to the newly proposed multifamily and cluster zoning categories. And this would be outside of that triangle town center area that is outlaid in the new land use plan. So for the multifamily zoning option, we discussed it would be best adjacent to the main roads 24, 58, Taylor Notion as an extension of that triangle area that we've discussed. For the cluster zoning category, we discussed 3.2 units per acre as a solution to maintain low density as it parallels the R13 district, which is just down Bonita and Manatee. So I'm sure many of you have driven down there and can get a feel for what that's like. And it would be only 1 more unit an acre than what is already proposed in R30 or what's already accepted. So the key point here, though, is that these are still single-family detached homes that we are proposing that are a low density in accordance with our land use plan. And then lastly, we discussed decreasing the amount of special uses in the table of permitted uses. So this would bring us back, now that we've learned that's kind of a cumbersome process, this would bring us back to the version that we had closer before. We would propose to maybe eliminate some of those extraneous uses that are in there. I don't know if you've read through some of those, but they're not applicable really at this stage. And then just keeping some of the special uses for certain items. So that's going to be the focus at our next meeting, is really nailing that down and getting that list to you. So other than that, pending your questions.
Any questions? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. Excuse me. Next is the consent agenda. Have a motion to accept the consent agenda. Motion to accept. It's a tie. We'll give it to Steve. Second. All right. Okay. Any discussion?
Yes, just one question, quick
Sure.
question to the attorney. Have you reviewed all the resolution about the contract with Thomas Simpson and all that stuff?
Yes.
Everything's okay? Yes. Frank,
Yes, sir.
that's all I got.
Okay. No more comments then. All in favor? All right. Thank you, gentlemen. I just want to acknowledge the Girl Scouts of America are in the audience, which was part of the consent agenda. They're going to be moving into the building. I am a little disappointed I don't see any cookies.
No cookies.
Just saying. That might be a deal breaker, but but I hope this really works out great for y'all. From what I understand, you're having to travel so far, so hopefully enjoy your training here and make use of that great space. And who could say no to Girl Scouts? I mean, come on, right? So thank you and welcome to the town of Cape Carteret. Next up is a resolution awarding the service badge and weapon to retiring police chief, Bill McKinney. Would you like to?
Yeah, just to introduce the item. So here tonight with you all with sort of a bittersweet moment, one of great joy and thankfulness for Chief McKinney reaching his retirement, thankfulness for his service to the town of Cape Carteret for approximately 10 years, the last 4.5 years as the chief here tonight. He will be retiring on September 30th of this month. So really, really happy for him that he's reached this milestone in his life and really appreciative of his service to the town of Cape Carteret. And although I've only been here for a few months, appreciative of his assistance to me during this transition. Equal parts sad for the town of Cape Carteret, losing a good quality man leading your police department. And so a bit of a bittersweet moment, but what the board has before you tonight is consideration of a resolution awarding the service badge and service weapon to Chief McKinney. Under North Carolina general statutes with the governing body's consent. That is something that you have the ability to do to recognize and to thank the service of a retiring law enforcement officer. Perhaps others in this room have experienced that in the past. But tonight we're asking you to consider that for Chief McKinney. Again, he served the town diligently for more than 10 years, the last 4.5 years as the chief. Really just a model of service, diligence, leadership, compassion, a good man leading your police department over the last 4.5 years. So with that, I'm going to call on Sergeant Eschbach and Chief McKinney to come on up and ceremoniously provide that to him if the board approves the resolution presented for your consideration tonight.
Do I have a motion to approve the resolution?
I'll make that motion.
A second? All in favor? All right.
Chief, on behalf of the town, police department. So, offer you the service gun and badge, show our appreciation for everything you've done for as long as you've been here. We all greatly appreciate it. Sir.
Chief, did you want to make a few remarks?
Go right ahead.
I was thinking, I was paddleboarding this weekend and started out around the island, and I noticed that there was a little bit of headwind and the current was against it. We kept paddling, and as we got to a certain point around the island and started back to our origination, or point of origination, that the tide was now behind us. It was so much easier. And I know that tides ebb and flow. And I asked the sergeant one day, over the weekend, I said, do you feel like that the tide is behind us at this point? And he said, yes, I really do. But tides ebb and flow. And there will be times when we're against the tide again. But we came in and conquered. It's been it's been a great privilege to serve this town, the people in it. I couldn't have worked with a better staff between from town manager, the board members. It's been an awesome experience that I will forever be grateful for. I still charge the officers to continue to serve with excellence. And to the public, I would say none of us are perfect, but I've always asked the officers to serve with excellence, and I will continue to charge them to do so. And the battle in the future, I know for the department, will be to fulfill or fill the new positions that will be available. I tell you that I couldn't have done and be where I'm at without the help of Mike Caldwell. He's been a great asset to me. He has a lot of wisdom and knowledge. He's been here for the officers. I reached out to people outside of the agency, and they also were a great help to me. And I'm very appreciative for that. I trust that the officers will remain vigilant. We'll stay away from complacency. Want to see them all go home each day, and not to become cynical. There's still good people out there in this world that we serve. And that's been my goal, is to be that servant and an example for the officers to serve, and never forget that. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Amazing job. Always welcome to come by the house and have coffee, though, even though you're not chief. I will have to charge you from now on, though. Yeah, can't give you that free stuff anymore. But great job, sir. Any comments? I'd like us to go, and any commissioners have any comments they'd like to say, or we'll start with Steve.
Chief, I just want to thank you for basically coming to our rescue 4.5 years ago. We were in dire straits. Some of us here remember that very well. Fantastic job. Couldn't ask for a better person to have been in that position than you. You've always been there when I needed you, and I have needed you a lot of times, as you know, especially what you've done for my neighborhood will not be forgotten. Good luck in your retirement. I wish you the best. You need anything, call.
Chief, we appreciate your service, and I hope you find happiness and fulfillment in your retirement.
Chief, congratulations, sir. Very well deserved. You have done an awesome job within the town of Cape Carteret in this police department. And our prayers go with you in your endeavors, in your journey, and on your journey in the days to follow. And you always have a place to stop by and say, and take us out to eat, whatever you want to do. But your life, your second part of your life is starting to begin. Congratulations to you, sir.
Chief, I want to thank you for all your years of service here in the town. The time you came over here from the sheriff's department, working out there on patrol, worked a few years at SRO, got hit by a car at least a couple of times that I remember. One time put you in the hospital, and then stepped up as the chief of police under some turbulent times, and you held everything steady, got everything rolling. And I think you've done a superb job, and I just wish you the best of luck in whatever your future holds for you. Thank you.
Thanks, Chief. I appreciate it. We were going to get you a box of Girl Scout cookies, but I don't think we're going to be able to get that. So, but thank you. I appreciate it.
All righty. I already said what I had to say, and I'll just reiterate again, awesome job, sir. And for a small town, you know, police departments are very under a microscope, more than so in a bigger town. So to handle that, the pressure and all there is, and just with the last few years, when you came in a tumultuous time, then we had the pandemic, and then we had all this social unrest of defunding the police and all that to deal with. My God, I couldn't do your job. I couldn't do it. Thank you. Thank you again. And thank you, officers, as well. Great job. Can't say enough.
I let you know, I couldn't have done this without God. Many times I retreated.
God bless you, sir.
One thing I wanted to mention to the group is that Chief McKinney's still got another 18 days with us.
That's right.
So he's going to need to use that badge and at least carry that weapon, hopefully not use it. But our intent is to have that framed very nicely for him upon his retirement. But we wanted to recognize him publicly here tonight at your meeting tonight. And again, thank you, Chief McKinney, for all you've done.
Thank you, sir. All right, next on the agenda is ordinance amending Chapter 95 of the Parks and Recreation of the Code of Ordinances to increase the penalty for unauthorized use of the public boat ramp, which we were discussing at the last meeting, I believe. Just had a few clerical things.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Baker. Commissioners, what you have before you for consideration tonight is an ordinance that would essentially increase the penalties for unauthorized use of the public boat ramp. Also consolidate some of the parking related penalties at town parks and hopefully simplify things going forward. One of my goals for the town in the future is to simplify things where we can. As we talked about at your meeting in August, we are currently charging $225 to $750 for an annual boat ramp pass. The violation for using the boat ramp without a pass is only $200. And we talked about the idea of increasing the penalty to be something higher than the cost of the pass. I ultimately settled on a recommendation in the ordinance of $1,000 penalty for someone who uses the boat ramp without obtaining the proper pass. Quite frankly, that number could probably be any number that you think is most appropriate. It could be $250, could be $500, could be $750. Initially, I actually considered $750 because that's the amount of our most expensive boat ramp pass. I ultimately included the $1,000 recommendation in the ordinance for your consideration tonight. Because it was a nice round number that's higher than all of the annual boat ramp passes, but also because really the main goal of these things is to be a deterrent. Quite frankly, I don't want people's money. I want them to simply comply with the town's ordinances. And so the fact that the penalty might be $1,000 for unauthorized use of the ramp, if we post the appropriate signage there, I hope it would be a deterrent and people would be convinced to come to town hall and secure their annual boat ramp pass and be in compliance with the town's ordinances. So that's the reason for the $1,000 recommendation. If you feel like that's a little too harsh, we certainly can consider whatever dollar amount you think is more appropriate. A couple of other minor things included in this. You'll notice that we changed the nomenclature. So the ordinance currently reads boat ramp parking without a pass. And we recently had an issue that called into question the parking nature of that. So we've changed the language to unauthorized use of the public boat ramp, which is really a better descriptor. It's someone using it without paying for the appropriate pass. So we've changed that language. And then, as I mentioned earlier, there are several parking related violations included in our ordinance. And keep in mind that this applies to all town recreational facilities, not just the boat ramp. The penalty for these parking violations generally in the town is $50. So the recommendation is to simply consolidate this into parking violations at all of our recreational facilities and set that penalty at $50 as well. One thing I wanted to call to your attention that the town attorney pointed out to me, if you look at the actual ordinance in section 2 of the ordinance, First of all, anything that's written in normal text is the current language. Any changes are indicated with a strike through and an underline. But if you look at number 2, would ask you if you take action on this tonight, just remove the phrase parking in and just have sentence or the beginning of section number 2 read violations of this section, because it's more than just parking violations, just to clean up language, and then removing the word parking from the schedule of what the actual penalties are. So it would just be violation and the penalty amount, really just kind of a minor thing just to be more consistent going forward. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have about this. Because it is an ordinance and it's the day of introduction, it would require 4 affirmative votes to be approved tonight. If the outcome is 3-2, we would have to schedule it for consideration again at a second meeting, presumably in October. So.
Any questions for Frank? Or none? Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we move forward with this.
Okay, a second?
I'll second.
All right. Any discussion? If not, all in favor? Okay, 5-0. There you go.
Thank you.
All right, next up, 12, resolution authorizing stormwater easement acquisition from Star Hill Golf Course.
I just pulled an image up on the screen for the audience's benefit. You all have this image in your packets. And then also in your packet is a copy of some recent survey data, a little tough to read on the screen, but you have this in your packet as well. I'm going to leave the aerial photographic up on the screen for now, just to hopefully be clear to folks what we're talking about. Essentially, what you have before you to consider tonight is a resolution that would authorize the town manager and the town attorney to acquire and execute a formal stormwater easement from Star Hill Golf Course. If you look at the image in your packet and on the screen, you will see in the middle, or I should say on the right-hand side of that red rectangle, there's a green line running through there. That is the approximate location of an existing town stormwater pipe. That is a 15-inch pipe, and we've had some issues with in the past from what I've learned in my time here. That pipe is located on the Star Hill Golf Course property on the fairway. The town does not, it is a town pipe. The town does not have an easement to maintain that pipe. We do have easements on both sides of that pipe. So as you extend back towards Sutton Drive, and as you extend towards Star Hill Drive and on toward Pettiford Creek, there are stormwater easements there. There is a pipe in those locations. It is maintained by the town. As you all know, there have been some flooding issues in the Sutton Drive area in the past, at times pretty severe. We are currently working on a solution to those problems. And one of the potential solutions, I would say the most likely solution at this point in time, is to either add another pipe across the fairway or replace the existing pipe with a larger pipe and make some other associated improvements in that area. At this point, we're still waiting for the engineer's assessment, and we'll be retaining an engineer to do some more detailed design. So I don't know at this point exactly what that solution will look like, but I suspect it will involve either an additional pipe or the replacement of that pipe. If the town does add another pipe or replaces that pipe, we're going to need to have the right to access that area to install the pipe and to maintain it in the future. So the town will need to secure an easement through that area. And I would submit to you that even if the town does nothing, it would be helpful and beneficial to have an easement for our existing pipe in that area. So the proposal before you tonight is to authorize the manager and the attorney to essentially acquire an easement somewhere within the confines of that red rectangle on the screen. That's roughly a 350-foot wide swath. And there's probably a good chance that the actual easement would be about where the green line is, where the existing pipe is now. But I think there's also an equally good chance that the new pipe would be located further to the left in the image, and perhaps coming back more, I guess, toward the west geographically. And so if the board approves a resolution tonight, we would work closely with the design engineer and we would work closely with Star Hill Golf Course to identify where the most appropriate location is for an easement, approximately 25 feet wide, to accommodate the installation and the maintenance on the pipe. We would work with the engineers to design that. We'd work with Star Hill Golf Course to narrow down that exact location of the easement, ultimately execute that if the board approves the resolution tonight. As noted in the agenda packet, we would also secure the rights to pretty comprehensive survey data, which again is on the screen, a little bit tough to read, I'm sure, but it's a very comprehensive topographic survey of the entire Sutton Drive, Star Hill area, essentially the basin, so to speak, that is drained by this existing stormwater pipe. That work has been done, has greatly aided in our understanding of the issues in that neighborhood. And as part of this acquisition of the easement, we would secure the survey data, provide that to the town's engineer, and proceed with design work. The total cost of the package to acquire the easement and to secure the survey data is $16,000. I believe that's a reasonable number. We would provide that to Star Hill Golf Course. We have funding available in our capital project ordinance for stormwater improvements that you all approved at the last meeting in August. If we acquire the easement, the next step would be to retain an engineer to design the appropriate improvements in this area. I have personally gone door to door to all of the neighboring property owners adjacent to the existing pipe, had positive conversations with all of them, still trying to reach one of those individuals at this point in time, just to let them know what we're thinking about, that we're working on it, trying to come up with a solution. So folks, as you all, I think, are well aware, are anxious for some solution in that area. I think we can solve it. I think it's just a matter of figuring out exactly how to go about doing that. But I think it's very much achievable. So if the board is comfortable, I would ask you to consider adopting the resolution tonight. I did want to let you know also that in the meantime, it is hurricane season. Our public works staff recently went out to the south side of the fairway and did some maintenance work on an existing ditch leading to the pipe under the fairway, just to make sure that it flows better if, God forbid, we need it for a storm here in the next several weeks. We are also in the process of removing some existing concrete lids that are on catch basins near Star Hill Drive. And so it's just a concrete lid. We're basically going to install a grate across that area so that if there is any surface water flow, hopefully it will be easier and quicker for that water to evacuate that area and ultimately make its way out to Pettiford Creek. This is in conjunction with some recent work by Star Hill Golf Course to basically knock down some berms out on the fairway so that ideally, we want the water to go underground through the pipe and not cause a problem for anybody. But in those extreme events, if it does get above ground, at least I think we'll be in a little bit better position to deal with that this fall than maybe we were the last time this issue occurred. So appreciate Public Works going out there and handling that for us recently. I truly hope it was a waste of time and that we don't need to use it this year, because that will mean we didn't have any events, but trying to be as prepared as we possibly can. So with that, happy to answer any questions you have and appreciate your consideration.
The only question I have for you is, are we going to, assuming if the easement does not go across the existing pipe, are we going to be required to remove that pipe?
Truthfully, I don't think that we've determined that yet. I would suggest that we would not remove that pipe. If we do replace it with a brand new pipe in a different location, I would leave it there and try to get some stormwater value out of it. So I don't intend to remove that pipe. Now, we may or may not have the easement across the top of that. Chances are we probably, so I think there's a scenario where we simply replace the pipe and have one 25-foot wide easement. I think there's another scenario where maybe we have two easements across there to cover the existing pipe and a new pipe. I think there's also a scenario where we might have, there are two open ditches there that sort of converge on the fairway. For example, we may have sort of a Y-shaped easement at the end of the day. And that's in large part why I think it's really best to have an engineer design it for us first. So a good question.
That's all I have.
I have a question. It has nothing to do with the easement part, but the area that the ditch, drainage ditch goes through the property that goes out towards the water. Is that something we're gonna have to look at later, or is that area in good shape to expel the water out from the areas?
Are you, if you look at the screen, are you talking about the area near Pettiford Creek or so I think whatever solution we come up with, it's going to be a comprehensive solution that would be implemented all the way from Sutton Drive. Back out of here a little bit. All the way from the Sutton Drive area up in here. We have an existing easement and pipe in this location. Then we have an open ditch that leads out toward the fairway. We have an existing ditch. And then we have pipes basically from this point all the way out to Pettiford Creek. I expect that we will ultimately bring you for consideration a solution that replaces the entire length of that pipe. Depending on the cost involved with it, we may try to do that in 2 different phases, but in a perfect world, we would replace that entire length of pipe with one larger pipe at the same time.
I'd like to make the motion to adopt this resolution as written.
I'll second.
All right, any more discussion? Okay, all in favor? All righty. You happen to know what the type of pipe that is headed out toward the Bedford end? Is that concrete?
It is a corrugated plastic pipe.
Okay.
To the best of my knowledge, it appears to be constructed. That's what's exposed at the end near Star Hill Drive and then also out near the creek. So
We could pipe burst that. I'm just thinking about the replacement part. It'd be easier to pull a new line in where the existing one is. If it's plastic, it would be easier to bust and replace.
Yeah.
In line, save some money.
I think the biggest concern in that section of the pipe is probably going to be the existing trees.
Trees, yeah,
There's
they'll have to.
There's a nice buffer between the 2 homes in that area that they're obviously understandably interested in preserving. And so we'll certainly try to work as closely as we can with them and save the larger trees to the extent possible, but some of them I'm sure will have to be removed.
Well, with pipe bursting, that could be more feasible to try to save the trees because you're doing it all in place.
Sure.
What do you think the
Just
timeline
becomes
is?
more expensive,
It
I think,
does.
so.
Yeah, a little bit.
What do you think the timeline is on this easement? I'm just looking at the scope. 2, 3, 4, 5. 5th paragraph from the last. If approved, the town manager will work with the project engineers. It's basically the scope that you just talked about. What do you think the timeline would be on something like that?
Yeah, so I think the initial first step was to secure access to the survey data and also the easement. So, and I think we have that cooperation from the golf course. And with the approval of the resolution, my intent is to move forward to retain an engineer to design the appropriate improvements there. I will most likely be talking to Tidewater, the same engineering firm that did the survey work that you saw in your packet here tonight, and try to move on that very soon. My goal is to construct something out there sometime shortly after the first of the year, if not sooner. And obviously we'll come back to you with the preferred solution and the construction contract and all those kind of things.
Thank you, sir. Item 13, resolution authorizing conversion of existing vacant position to new town planner / assistant to town manager position.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Baker, commissioners. This is something that I wanted to bring to your attention, something I've been thinking about for the last 6 weeks or so. We currently have 4 authorized positions in the Public Works Department, and 1/2 of those 4 positions is tasked with providing code enforcement activities for the town. The other 3.5 positions are typical public works positions, including our director. And I think theoretically the director is tasked with the code enforcement functions in there. I think you all may have talked about that in an earlier budget discussion. We recently had a gentleman leave one of our positions in the Public Works Department, so we have 1 vacancy right now. Additionally, the typical development program administration services have been basically filled by staff in town hall, myself and Barbara Owens, our permit technician, front desk person, administrative assistant. In the past, over the years, the town has had a couple of different models in place. There's at one point in time, there was a part-time person who was responsible for those functions, typically worked 2.5, maybe 3 days a week on those activities. Going back many, many years, there was a full-time position that was dedicated to that and also performed building inspection activities. I think that's roughly 10, 15 years ago. The part-time position was probably in the last 5 years or so, give or take. With the vacancy in Public Works and the opportunity that that provides, anytime we have a vacant position, I think it's important to sort of step back and take a look at what the goals of the community are, what the goals of the organization are, what can we maybe do different to do a better job and things. So anytime there's a vacant position, I take a look at those kind of things. And in this particular case, particularly since development issues are understandably of great importance to folks in the community, my recommendation to you tonight is to essentially convert that vacant Public Works position into a new position. I called it Town Planner Assistant to the Town Manager position. And basically that person would essentially provide all of the development administration tasks, UDO administration, floodplain management, zoning permits, all of those kind of things. Very important to me, the customer service piece of it, dealing with our residents, dealing with our contractors, liaising with other state, county officials and so forth, really doing the best job that we can to be as helpful as we possibly can to people in accomplishing their goals, whether they want to build a house or build a shed or whatever, or they want to build a shopping center for that matter. So this new position would be the main primary person tasked with administering those programs. This person would also provide code enforcement services in the town, both reactive when we get a complaint, but also hopefully to do a better job being proactive on those things in the community. Excuse me. And then in addition to that, would also get involved in special projects assigned by the town manager, possibly supporting the new police chief, supporting our public works director, our finance director, our town clerk, really all other aspects of the town government operation. And essentially create that existing, convert that existing vacant position into the new town planner assistant to the town manager position. And I will tell you that I've struggled with this over the last 6 weeks or so, because I think we have a very definite need when it comes to the development review process, everything from answering the inquiries from the citizens to supporting the planning board and the board of adjustment, to helping me, to helping our other staff, to trying to help the person identify a way to achieve whatever it is they want to achieve, if maybe the ordinance doesn't quite line up with what they want to do. All of those things, and including one of my goals going forward, assuming the board is comfortable with it, is trying to streamline the Unified Development Ordinance, make it simpler, make it easier. Sarah Wax mentioned some of the work that the planning board is embarking on right now with the special use permits, those kind of things, so that it's a much more efficient process, smoother, easier process for everyone involved. That's the main function of it. And quite frankly, I don't think that's a full-time job. But I do think that there's value that can be gained by having another person on the town staff to assist all of the town departments with those other special tasks that may come about. Looking to gradually improve our services in all of the town departments, improve our transparency, improve our public communications efforts, and this person would essentially do all of those things. I struggled with what title to propose for you all. I ultimately settled on town planner / assistant to the town manager. And the "to the" is an important component of that. It is not an assistant town manager. I certainly don't believe this organization needs that level. But what I do think is helpful with this title is I want to attract the right kind of individual. I want to attract a bright individual. I want to attract someone who's committed to public service. I want to attract someone who is analytical, someone who's creative, and most importantly is focused on providing good customer service and helping our citizens, helping our community achieve their goals. Someone who's very pragmatic. So I'm specifically looking for someone who's not necessarily a planner type. I want them to be knowledgeable about those things and provide great assistance to everyone involved. But I also want them to look at things from a more pragmatic approach, from a less bureaucratic approach, to be more in tune with the overall goals. Hopefully someone that, quite frankly, I can train. Maybe that person might want to be a town manager at some point in the future, many, many years down the road. So that was the reason for the title. At the end of the day, after considering all of the issues involved with it, I think that's the best overall approach. There's some pros and cons with that approach and some pros and cons probably with the other models the town has used in the past. But considering everything, that's what led to that recommendation. At the end of the day, though, I think the town, our customers, our staff, our planning board, our board of commissioners, our board of adjustment would really benefit greatly from having someone who's focused on those development issues and those development processes going forward. So I hope that will come to agreement on some solution in that regard. The cost of the position, what I would expect, so the position that is currently vacant in Public Works has an annual salary of $32,477, and there are other benefits associated with that. That bring that cost up somewhere in the $50,000 a year range. I would look to hire this new position, depending on the person's background and qualifications, somewhere in the $40,000 to $50,000 range. There's probably another $18,000 to $20,000 of benefit costs associated with that. The net increase in costs for the town with this proposal, depending on who the person is and what the actual salary is, anywhere from $8,000 to $20,000 additional beginning in fiscal 23-24. There's really no cost impact in the current year just because it's going to take some time to hire the person, and we've got the vacancy and the lapse salaries and so forth. So if the board authorizes this tonight and approves a resolution, no additional costs this year. I'd be working to identify the $8,000 to $20,000 roughly to present to you in next year's budget. We'll start the budget process probably in the February timeframe, and I'll give you a preview of how things look at that time. Talk to you about your priorities and your goals for the community, for the organization at that time. And my goal clearly is to present you a recommended budget with no tax increase. And so I'll have to identify the necessary savings or additional revenues to cover this going forward. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. Welcome your comments and your suggestions. And thank you for considering it.
Questions? Go ahead, Steve.
I don't have a question, Frank, but I do have some concerns that I would like to share with the board. Our job is to be as frugal with taxpayer dollars as we can. I mean, that's our most important job. And the primary objective here is to have a full-time code enforcement officer. That would be the primary objective, since that's what they're doing over in Public Works now, in my mind. So I would like to take what you've proposed and tweak it slightly. And as you know, you were privy to my request with the county today. Cape Carteret has paid the county fiscal year 21-22, $85,612.32 for inspections. That's $85,612.32. That's not counting zoning permits that we do in-house here.
Is that just building inspection?
That's just inspections. I would like to propose to hire a full-time code enforcement officer / building inspector. Do it all in-house like we did 5 or 6 years ago with Brandon Hawks. It's much easier on the public to go to one source right here in the office, and it would be self-sustainable. The money that we allocated for that position in Public Works could be put back in the general fund. I just don't think it's the proper time to have a assistant to the town manager. I mean, I think code enforcement is the number one priority here. And I think with $85,000 to pay someone, we could probably attract a very, very smart level 3 inspector. That's just my opinion. As the resolution reads now, I won't be able to support it, Frank. Sorry.
Understood. Just one clarification for you and for the rest of the group. So I think that's certainly a valid approach we could take if that's the board's directive tonight. I think that would certainly be helpful to the community. Really, the primary goal of the person is code enforcement and UDO administration, floodplain management administration. And you may have been thinking about those simultaneously, but to me, that's really the more critical piece, is somebody who can administer all of our development regulations. Code enforcement is sort of a byproduct of that, so to speak.
It's just a one-stop shop.
Yeah. So
one person.
But I think, we certainly could take that approach. We could recruit for a building inspector and certainly make arrangements with the county to basically retain all of the building permit fees that you mentioned. I will tell you that it is just incredibly difficult to recruit and retain building inspectors, and has been really for the last 5 to 10 years. It's a significant challenge. And quite frankly, that's why most of the towns in the county have been shifting to the county providing building inspections, because they can't find anyone else to do the work. Having said that, we certainly can make an effort and try our best to recruit someone. I just want to let you know that it is a really challenging recruiting environment.
I have to add to that, Frank, it's challenging to hire a town manager and a police chief. So I think we at least, for the $85,000 we're spending, I think we ought to try. I really do. Self-sustainability here, and being able to put 30 some odd $1,000 back in the general fund, possibly more, if you add the zoning permits and whatnot. I just feel strongly about taking that approach. At least try to hire someone. If we can't, if we fail, then you bring it back to the board.
Understood.
That's just my opinion.
What are the odds of the person fulfilling that role being able to fulfill the same role that you, or the primary problems that we're trying to address?
I think they're reasonable. I mean, I think there's a good chance you could find someone. Again, it's a competitive recruiting environment for building inspectors, particularly when the construction industry is strong. If the construction industry is lagging some, there are more folks interested in becoming a building inspector, understandably. In this environment, it's so difficult to attract them and retain them. Some of them, quite frankly, may not want to mess with the zoning piece of it. And the community debate that goes on about what those ordinances should be or shouldn't be, and the various opinions about that. So that's one of my apprehensions about it. But to answer your question directly, I think we could find someone who would be qualified to do both. It would, I think, be incumbent on me to find someone with the right customer service mentality and the right pragmatic approach to those things. But
Of that $85,000 that we spend as a county, would that be a direct 85,000 back on a line item in our budget? Should we decide to go that route, or is there a?
Yeah, so it's probably a variable number. So it's not actual money that we pay to the county. It is money that our residents and our property owners pay when they pay their building permit fees. So the people of Cape Carteret, the landowners of Cape Carteret, for the last fiscal year paid approximately $85,000 in building permit fees. If we took the approach Commissioner Martin suggested, we would simply retain those building permit fees. I do think they're probably going to decrease just slightly, probably not any significant amount. We're basically averaging about $6,000 a month right now, and it depends on how the economy goes and how the market goes. It's tapered a little bit from the peak of the COVID times, but still pretty strong. So I think you could probably count on a number close to that.
Yeah, so is that 85,000 just last year?
That's fiscal 21, 22.
I mean, we would need to look at that over the course of a few years. I mean, because there's been more development in Cape Carteret than there's ever been. And so that could be somewhat of an inflated number, right? If we're if we're planning to use some of that.
We're on track. I didn't write down the first 2 months of this fiscal year, July and August. Frank, was it,
It's about $6,000
we're
per
on
month.
track for a little less than 70,000 as of now.
But what was it in 2018? I mean, what was it before all this money in the market? I mean, that's, and I understand what you're saying. It's just, my fear is, okay, will we get past this? I hate to even say bubble, but let's just say bubble. Will there be much building inspections for that individual to do if it's a dedicated position?
At that point, we're gonna have to. So, way I see it, yeah, that's an absolute possibility. However, if we add to the budget 20 grand, that is a guaranteed 20 grand that we got to come up with. So we take on our own inspections, we may have the income to take care of that position.
That 20,000.
We will not or we will have to cut somewhere to get this. We're not adding income. We do this. And granted, that may only last a year or two. I mean, we don't know what that looks like.
You know, month in and month out, we sit here and we wonder when it's going to end. Okay, the good times, if you will. The last several budgets, that's been the discussion that we've done. I don't foresee it ending. Not in this area for a long time. I mean, the county, everybody's preparing for the big one. The big one's on the way. But I agree with Charlie's analysis of that $20,000. I forgot to throw that out there, but that's a good analysis of that too. So.
And if there, I mean, so I get what the fear is, right? That there's no inspection income, and then we just got to come up with that in the budget. Well, if we go the other route, we have to come up with that in the budget. We have no chance of extra income to cover that.
Right, and I think it's a good idea. I just don't want in 3 years from now, someone sitting, twiddling their thumbs. The other thing too is you had mentioned it, Commissioner Martin, you'd said that, police, we've got to hire, we're also talking about adding another sort of liability to the town as well by having now building inspections, so there's the added liability of that, adding a whole nother group, person that does a whole separate business line. So.
Well, it's nothing we're a stranger to. We had a fantastic building inspector. I think John can vouch for that too. He left. I don't remember exactly why, but it was a big loss. The citizens loved being able to come to one place and take care of all their business, and the builders did too.
So I want Frank to have what he needs, what he believes he needs. We're paying a professional town manager to make these decisions and do these analysis for us. However, I lean toward having this. I mean, if we can if Frank can find the right person that he believes can get all the problems that he is trying to fix, and we can retain that income here in the town, then we can use, hopefully that will continue, but if not, then we can cross this bridge after we have a new chief of police and police officer or whatever else is coming out of the pipe. If there's a extra stream of income that can make us more self-sustainable, I tend to want to go down that path.
Well, Frank, what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on if we were to do building inspections as a town provided function, do you think that is sustainable from the income or from the money that we just pay to the county for the building inspections?
Yeah, I think that financially it is sustainable. And there's certainly going to be cyclical nature to the development patterns and the permit fees, but I think over the long term, it probably is sustainable. Honestly, my biggest fear is really attracting the right person more than anything else. I personally like that model, operated with that model for many, many years, ultimately got to the point where I had no choice and had to contract with the county for inspections because quite frankly, we couldn't hire anyone. No one wanted to do it. But I'm certainly willing to make an attempt and try to recruit someone because the model makes financial sense. No question about that. I'm just really, I guess, fearful we won't identify the right person.
Could we try to go with that model and see what's out there? And I mean, within a couple of months, I mean, if we're not making any headway, if
Sure.
there's just no applicants there, then come back and readdress it at that time. And, at least we give it a try and see, if the applicants are there.
I
Yeah.
think we need to test the waters.
No, I think that's a very reasonable approach, and we'll know within a few months whether or not that makes sense. I think the bottom line is I think the customers, the staff, everyone in the community would benefit from some focused service in that area, whether it's an inspector type, whether it's the position I mentioned, whether it's a part-time person. I just think that's a need that we have here in the town, and so I'm certainly willing to try that approach. And if that doesn't work, I'll come back to you all with a different approach. So.
I do feel with everything that we have encompassed. We have encompassed a lot in the last year and a half. On this board, a lot of things have happened. UDO, a lot of transition has been taking place. But I believe moving forward, there's something, I mean, you can call whatever you want to call this position, but we need to do something because I do know that an administrative part of this, I'm sure you get a lot of distraction to maintain what you have to do within the permit. Am I right?
It takes a considerable amount of my time at the moment.
Away from what you should be doing, correct?
Yes.
And so I think we do need to look at something as far as getting, the town's getting, a lot of things happen. So we need to do something. I'm in agreement to do what we need to do to get this implemented in some form, whether we add or delete, whatever. We need something for this town, only for you, but also for we're growing. We're going to have to do something, and y'all need help in here.
Well, what I think I'm hearing from all five of you, perhaps six, I'm not sure. But what I think I'm hearing from all five of you is that you're comfortable trying the building inspector, zoning administrator approach first and seeing how that goes. And then if that doesn't work out, I'll report back to you and maybe consider something like this. I would much rather all five of you feel good about the approach going forward at this point in time. And I'm certainly willing to give it a try. I would love for that to be a successful outcome. I just want you to know that I'm just concerned that it's going to be a significant challenge. One of the things that the town attorney pointed out to me also is that, those building inspectors, they have certain certifications issued by the state. If that person quits or if that person's out sick, we don't have anybody with those certifications. In that scenario, I would imagine we would go to one of our neighboring communities or probably back to the county and say, hey, can you help us out for a couple months or whatever time frame it takes? I don't think that's anything we can't overcome. It's just another consideration.
So could we, I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's what happened when Brand
Right.
left. So
And I only pointed that out because I know the other jurisdictions I'm involved with, that's an issue from some of the towns when someone's out on vacation or sick or not there, then you have absolutely nobody to do the job. That can really slow down things. So if we go down this route, part of that process may have an MOU in place where we talk to them about filling that role and then vacancies and things of that nature. So you don't end up scrambling and trying to get something in place at the last moment.
Y'all think instead of kicking this can down the road for seeing this and seeing that, can we implement something with this, get started?
I was going to
Yeah, we can
suggest
make-
that
we
we
can make
add a
the mo-
slash.
we can make a motion right now to start the process to hire a code enforcement / building inspector. Frank can do the salary ranges and the job description and all that stuff. We'll give it 2 or 3 months and see what happens. Like Don said, if you can't find a candidate, come back, we'll do something different.
So we could approve correct me if I'm wrong, this resolution by adding a slash like they're talking to where planner slash building inspector, and then if it doesn't work out, we just come back and take the building inspector out of the slashes. Does that make sense?
I think the primary objective, Mayor, is a code enforcement officer. Like that's the reason it went to Public Works to start with, code enforcement. That's what Mike.
We just need to word it properly.
Well, again, I just want to clarify for my understanding and hopefully for everyone else's. To me, the planner and the code enforcement, that person's doing both of those things.
Right.
That's kind of a
Same,
given.
right.
It's kind of one and the same. So I think that's what you mean. I don't want to
I
put words
just
in your
want to
mouth.
take, and nothing against you, Frank. I just want to take the verbiage of assistant town manager, assistant to town manager. That's
Sure.
for a later date. If you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just don't think we're there yet.
But does that mean we're taking out all of the language in paragraph 3? That part of it? Because I want to,
Frank, what do you recommend on the job description?
I want to manage expectations here.
Yeah, I think if you're looking at the cover memo that goes with the agenda item, in paragraph 3, that would not be part of the responsibilities. And essentially we would substitute typical building inspections, plumbing, electrical, all of those, mechanical, all of those kind of
Yes.
things. So, and then all of those other things, I would essentially just redistribute duties among other town staff and myself as well. So,
And other duties as may be assigned from time to time from the town manager.
yeah, that's right. I mean, I think probably everybody's in that situation. So,
And also, Frank, that you may want to give some thought about the level of inspection credentials. I'm not well versed on that.
yeah, just knowing the historical experience here in Cape Carteret and surrounding towns, I think a level 1 would provide great value. They probably could handle 95% or more of what we do. And then for anything higher than that, we would call on the county or perhaps some other neighboring community to help us with that. You might be fortunate to get someone with a level 2, but the bulk of the work is going to be level 1, I think, here in Cape Carteret.
I think that's what Brandon was when he started, Don, and he did obtain higher levels.
Yeah, certainly would encourage that person to advance themselves. So yeah, I mean, I think that's a reasonable position for us to take. And if the board's comfortable with that, I'm comfortable with that going forward. So.
I'll just tell you where I am with it. I don't support the deviation. To me, if we take the 20,000 that we would have paid the county and we put that into a salary, but we've added work for that person, I just think it's a net sum 0. And I think that we're taking on the ownership of building inspections is taking on a whole nother business. And I just don't think we're ready for that either. I mean, I understand what you're saying. I do understand it, but I just see it as we haven't gained anything by doing it.
Well, I'll be blunt. If we stay on course with what we got now, and we add a $20,000 pay increase to that position, we're headed for a tax increase next year. I'll just be blunt about it. The writing's on the wall. This is self-sustainable. We got a track record of providing that service for years here in-house. So I just have to disagree with Commissioner Watts on that analysis. But that said, Mayor, I won't make that motion.
Okay.
To that
And
effect.
make sure we got the wording right. So the motion is,
The motion is to, I'm assuming to direct the town manager to try to recruit applicants for a code enforcement / building inspector. And what was the rest of the job description?
Yeah,
The planner.
I think it's basically a hybrid planner, code enforcement officer, building inspector position would be the best way to describe it.
And the salary range would be up to you based on their level of credentials. Right?
Yeah, I would need to do some research on what the going rate is right now for a building inspector here in our area, but I would think we could accommodate that. So.
That type of motion, would that give you what you're basically asking, of what was of the needs of the town? That position?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's absolutely going to be helpful. And I think, again, the main impetus for it is the town planner code enforcement piece of it. This is a creative way to finance that. So I think if we can accomplish those planner enforcement goals, that's a positive thing for the town going forward. And, I'll go through a recruitment process and certainly keep you all informed along the way how we're doing. And if it's not fruitful, I'll come back to you with another proposal if you're comfortable with
Sounds
that.
good.
So,
I'll second that.
But this is still removal of paragraph 3 in the duties.
yes, that would remove the paragraph 3. But I do think it's an enhancement to the services that we provide for the community, for our customers. So I think it would be a positive thing. Again, I just want to caution you, I'm just fearful that it may not be fruitful. So, but we'll test the waters.
But what I'm hearing you say is you're okay with removal of those duties and you think that it will still be beneficial. I'm just trying to figure out where you are with it because, in your memo, you have paragraph 3, but if we're so easy to sort of sever that and you're happy with that, then I will, I'm okay supporting this, but I'm just trying to make sure that you have the tools that you need to do. I mean, I see grant applications and capital projects in here, I think that's a big deal
Yeah.
to just strike that fairly easily.
Yeah. So I think I would look at paragraph number 3 as value added, so to speak, going forward. Again, the main impetus behind this is the planning code enforcement piece of it. The building inspection thing is something that I'm happy to add to it or happy to leave off of it, but it's a convenient financing tool, quite frankly. And if it comes to fruition, then that's great. So I think it's definitely an enhancement. Quite frankly, I don't know if the planner code enforcement piece of it is a full-time position. And so I was looking for ways to add value by having that person work on all of the things you see in paragraph 3 in there, because I think there is value to be gained by that and good things for the town going forward. So,
Okay.
but again, make no mistake that the main focus is the planning code enforcement piece of
Something
it.
that paragraph there and add to it could be subjected to do these things as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think in reality, it probably depends on the individual that's selected for the position and what their capabilities are. So, I think any good manager, if you identify specific talents in certain people, you're going to use them in any way that's helpful to the organization. So it really depends. I know, like a lot of building inspectors, particularly when times are good, they want to work in the private sector, in the construction industry. When times are bad, there's more interest in building inspector positions, stable government employment, understandable dynamic. I also know that sometimes they don't want to be involved with the zoning piece of it, the permitted uses, the code enforcement piece of it. Some of them like the black and white nature of the building inspections program, the state level code. So I got to find the right person and really meld those tasks together. But I think it's certainly worth a try. And again, it's more important to me for the 5 of you to feel comfortable with that. And hopefully we can make it happen. If it doesn't, I'll come right back to you. So.
And you use the word other, that, other duties as dictated by the town manager could cover that as well.
I'm good with that.
That's right. If I think that person's capable of it, I'm absolutely going to get him to help. So.
Okay, Steve had the motion, got the second. Any more discussion? Okay, all in favor? All righty. Make it so, Frank.
Thank you.
Hey, find the right person, Frank. Don't get in a hurry.
Yeah, that's
Like, I'm serious.
Yeah.
Don't feel rushed to.
And if there is issue and you don't think it's there again, come back and let us know.
Yeah, honestly, I hope I'm wrong. So I hope we find a good person who can fill all those roles.
I think you could find an entry level.
It's pretty funny because I just got a phone call from a guy who's the lead building inspector for City of Graham. Just called me.
Is he watching the meeting?
He might be wanting to move, I don't know.
Give him my cell phone number.
From the City of Graham.
We know that the bases are now looking at hiring inspectors to do their jobs.
It's worth a try to keep the money in-house. Especially at this stage in the game, we may be facing next year.
All righty, next up is town manager reports.
Yeah, several items included in the written report in your packet. I just wanted to highlight a few of maybe the more significant ones. Just a reminder to everyone in the community that Public Works will begin the vegetative debris collection 2 weeks from today on September 26th. So starting this coming weekend through the 26th, please get your materials out to the curbside. We expect that it'll take our staff probably a week, perhaps as much as 2 weeks to get through that full pass. If you want to be guaranteed that it's picked up, please get it out there by the 26th so they can get that. Planning board member Wax mentioned some of the things we're working on at the planning board level. Depending on how our meeting on September 27th goes, I may bring you some proposed amendments to the Unified Development Ordinance at your October 10th meeting. If not, I think it would be your November 8th meeting. And we're looking for ways to allow some alternative housing types in other areas of the community. And so I'm encouraged by the discussions so far. I think they're headed in a good path, and we'll bring those for your consideration, hopefully October 10th, maybe November the 8th. The police chief recruitment is underway. We started running the advertisement about 2 weeks ago. We're up to 10 applications thus far as of today. The deadline is September the 30th for folks to apply. So if you know well-qualified candidates interested in coming to Cape Carteret, please point them toward that advertisement.
There he is, right here.
Whether it's someone in our
His wife
community
doesn't
or
know.
someone you know. So,
He's still young.
and so along those lines, with Chief McKinney leaving us on September 30th, I have named Sergeant Eschbach as our interim police chief, effective upon Chief McKinney's retirement. They have already been working very closely together over the last several weeks, and certainly will become more intense over the next few weeks. Really pleased to have Sergeant Eschbach stepping up to that role.
Thank you, Sergeant.
With that, if there's any other questions that you have, please just let me know, whether it's in the report or anything else on your mind. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions for the town manager?
Yes, I've got one.
Right ahead.
Frank, at some point in time during your busy schedule, I received a troubling photograph, which I was aware of, from a citizen showing no water at our kayak launch. If you would at some point in time, pick a time during a low tide stage, maybe go take a look at that, see if there's any solution to that. For some reason, in my opinion, the launch itself may have been placed in slightly the wrong area. If it's something that you want to take a look at and get back to the board, maybe of a solution or something.
I'll be happy to take a look at it going forward.
Appreciate it.
Any more questions, comments? All right, then we'll skip down to the commissioner reports. I want to start in the middle of the night with Don. All right, Mr. Waters.
I don't have enough support other than the staff doing a mighty fine job.
Charlie?
Did you say Charlie?
Current board commissioner.
I don't have anything.
Steve?
Other than Chief, once again, God bless you. It's been a true blessing for the town, and it's gonna be hard to replace you, really. Don't be a stranger in your POV and just put a little horn on there when you come by my house like you always do. Whoop, so I know you're still living.
So I just want to say, I think it's great, what you've done with trying to get out on social media more, the Facebook page. I know you had problems with it, but I'm glad you got that worked out. The email, I thought the email was great. I think it's just a great snapshot of what's going on. And you can sort of digest it at your own rate. So I think that's kind of good. A couple of things for me, the whole bike path, walking path thing. I read through the contract. I think it would be good to see more sort of quality assurance from a town's aspect. perspective on those contracts. I don't know if that was the entire contract. I don't know. But I think that would be good. And then, like you'd mentioned in your memo, just more patrolling of the boat ramp. There's some big changes in the prices and everything. And I think stepping up patrols is good. You said that in your report, and I think I just want to amplify that. So, but that's all I have. Thank you.
And I will echo, Chief, thank you so much, man. Done a great job. Can't say enough. And I'm serious, anytime you want to stop by, get some coffee, I won't charge you. You can have it free. Absolutely. Absolutely. And thank you to the staff. They're doing an awesome job. And you too, Frank. I appreciate everything you're doing. Don't forget, we got the Fall Festival coming up November 5th, and trying to get any veterans that would be willing to participate in the parade coming up the same day as that morning in Moorhead. They're going to do a veterans parade there. So anybody we can get from our town to come, trying to get some nice flashy cars to drive us around in. I'll probably have to walk, but if you're interested, just let me know by the end of October so we can get you on the list. We'll try to get all our Cape Carteret veterans in one little area to be recognized. Can't say enough about the veterans in the area. So when they were asking me about, do we have any veterans in our town? I'm like, you can't sling a cat in my neighborhood without hitting a retired Marine. So I mean that as a compliment, being an Army guy, but anyway. That's right. We find you guys in all kinds of weird places and return you back safely. Anyway, thank you to all our veterans and the retired ones especially. When a guy was asking for that, I said that would be the issue here, is if we did have somebody try to invade our shoreline, the Marines would have to wade through all the veterans to get to them. I'll be more concerned about that. But love being here. It's a great little town. Can't say enough about the people. And thank you, gentlemen, for being on the board. And with that, I would love to entertain a motion to end this evening.
Make a motion to adjourn.
All right.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you. And thank you for being here tonight, people. Love to see people. It's your town.
Hang on for 1 second. Let me write myself something down.
Not too bad, 7:17.
Hey, Charlie, nice to see you. I think we met a long time ago, so, yeah.
Night, man. Need to stop by and talk to you sometime. See how you been doing.
Thank you. Appreciate you, man.
You been working?
I ain't going back to work. Actually,
Yeah.
Okay, all right, good to
So
know.
get this.
History on it.
Get this.
Yeah, hey, thank you.